Have you ever wondered how a man from a humble background could rise to control one of the most powerful drug empires in history? How could a single cartel boss dominate the drug trade across Mexico and the United States, only to see it all come crashing down? This is the story of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, better known as El Padrino, or the boss of bosses. He might not be as famous as some cartel leaders in movies, but in real life, he shaped the modern Mexican drug trade and left a legacy that still affects the world today. How did he start from almost nothing? How did he manage to build an empire that stretched across borders? And what ultimately led to his downfall? In this video, on the Narco Files, we'll explore the rise and fall of the Guadalajara Cartel, the complex criminal networks behind it, and the intelligence operations, including DEA and CIA efforts, that finally brought Felix Gallardo to justice. If you're fascinated by real stories about crime, power, and law enforcement, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Narco Files. Every story uncovers a side of the world most people never see. Chapter 1. Humble Beginnings. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo was born on January 8, 1946, on the outskirts of Culiacán, Sinaloa, Mexico. He grew up in a low-income family without wealth, influence, or powerful connections. Like many young men in the region, he began life with ordinary work and simple goals. After finishing high school, Gallardo studied business, hoping to find a path to success. At just 17 years old, he took a job in the Mexican Federal Judicial Police, a position that seemed normal at first, but would later shape his future. He eventually became a bodyguard for the governor of Sinaloa, a role that placed him close to politics and power. This job gave Gallardo something that money alone could not buy: access to influential people and deep political connections. He saw firsthand how politics, corruption, and business often overlapped. He realized that influence could open doors and create opportunities far beyond what ordinary money could achieve. It was in this environment that Gallardo learned a crucial lesson: power and connections were more valuable than wealth. He began to understand how deals were made, how people could be persuaded, and how loyalty could be bought or sold. These insights became the foundation for his later moves into the illegal drug trade, where connections, intelligence, and careful strategy mattered more than brute force. In other words, what looked like a simple job in law enforcement gave him the tools, knowledge, and opportunities to build one of the most powerful criminal empires Mexico had ever seen. Chapter 2. The birth of the Guadalajara Cartel. By the 1970s, Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo had connected with key partners who would help him shape one of Mexico's most powerful drug organizations. Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo and Rafael Caro Quintero became his closest allies. Together, they began bringing smaller drug operations under one umbrella, laying the foundation for what would become the Guadalajara Cartel. In the beginning, Gallardo and his partners had to be extremely careful. The Mexican government was already keeping an eye on drug trafficking. Operations like Project Condor, a secret mission run by the Mexican Federal Judicial Police, were designed to shut down trafficking routes and reduce illegal drug activity. Any wrong move could attract serious attention. Gallardo understood that to survive and grow, he needed more than just force. He needed strategy, alliances, and influence. He leveraged his early political connections to work with local authorities and law enforcement. Officials in the DFS, Dirección Federal de Seguridad, Mexico's intelligence agency, often looked the other way, or even assisted the cartel. Their support gave Gallardo a layer of protection that few others had. With these connections, combined with careful planning and logistical expertise, Gallardo and his partners controlled the trade of marijuana and later cocaine across Mexico, ensuring the products reached major markets in the United States, particularly California and Arizona. It wasn't just about drugs. It was about power, influence, and control. By blending corruption, intelligence, and careful alliances, Gallardo turned the Guadalajara Cartel into a sophisticated, highly organized empire that would dominate the drug trade for years. Chapter 3. The Marijuana Empire. One of Gallardo's first big moves was to grow marijuana on a larger scale. The cartel set up plantations in remote, mountainous areas, hidden from authorities and difficult to reach. At first, these crops had problems: low yields, inconsistent quality, and expensive transportation to get the product to buyers. But Gallardo's team found a solution. They adopted a new, higher quality strain of marijuana from the United States. These plants were more potent, easier to grow, and produced bigger harvests, which meant higher profits for the cartel. The next step was moving the plantations to remote desert areas. This change made transportation easier and less costly, while still keeping the crops hidden from law enforcement. To make it work, the cartel had to overcome several challenges. They paid bribes to local officials, secured water for irrigation, and kept the sites secret using intimidation and control over nearby communities. By the late 1970s, marijuana had become a major business. Gallardo had built an infrastructure capable of producing and transporting huge quantities of the drug. This laid the foundation for the Guadalajara Cartel's first real empire, giving them power, influence, and wealth that would eventually attract both allies and enemies. Chapter 4. The Cocaine Connection. In the 1980s, Colombian cocaine cartels faced heavy pressure from law enforcement and needed secure routes to move their drugs. Gallardo saw a big opportunity. Instead of charging just a fee for using his trafficking routes, he demanded half of all cocaine passing through his network. This bold strategy made him incredibly wealthy, with profits estimated at around $5 billion each year. Gallardo didn't just control drugs, he controlled protection, information, and operations. His influence extended through a network of corrupt officials, giving him an edge over competitors and law enforcement. Members of the DFS, Mexico's intelligence agency, were connected to the cartel, helping protect shipments and sometimes even carrying out violent tasks when needed. Through these carefully built systems, Gallardo expanded the Guadalajara Cartel's power not only across Mexico but also into the United States, especially in California and Arizona. His combination of strategy, influence, and corruption made him one of the most powerful drug kingpins of his time. Chapter 5. U.S. Intelligence and DEA Pressure. As the Guadalajara Cartel grew stronger, it caught the attention of U.S. authorities. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, began sending agents to Mexico to investigate trafficking routes and disrupt the cartel's operations. One of the most notable agents was Enrique Camarena, who went undercover to gather detailed information on the cartel's activities. Camarena uncovered a massive marijuana plantation that was producing an estimated $8 billion in revenue each year. This intelligence was crucial. It allowed DEA teams to plan and execute raids that destroyed key parts of the cartel's operations, striking directly at Gallardo's profits and power. Gallardo quickly realized that Camarena was a serious threat. Despite his efforts to remain undetected, the combined pressure from U.S. and Mexican authorities was growing. DEA intelligence operations, along with ongoing investigations by Mexican law enforcement, gradually closed in on the cartel. These coordinated efforts marked the beginning of the end for Gallardo's empire. The operations not only damaged his business, but also destabilized his network, setting the stage for his eventual arrest. Camarena's work proved that even the most powerful kingpins are vulnerable. When law enforcement is persistent, strategic, and determined. Chapter 6. The Arrest and Collapse. In 1989, Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo's empire finally faced a major blow. Mexican authorities arrested him along with 6 corrupt police officials who had been protecting his operations. What made this operation remarkable was that it was carried out without a single shot being fired, highlighting the careful planning and coordination between Mexican law enforcement and U.S. agencies like the DEA. Gallardo was extradited to the United States and faced charges for drug trafficking, racketeering, and multiple violent crimes. He was sentenced to around 40 years in prison. Later, he was resentenced in connection with the murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena, though Gallardo always denied any direct involvement in the killing. Even from behind bars, Gallardo's influence did not disappear. He used his remaining power and contacts to organize the cartel's operations from prison. He divided territories among trusted lieutenants, effectively fragmenting the Guadalajara Cartel into smaller, regional groups. These new organizations laid the foundations for some of Mexico's most notorious cartels, including the Sinaloa Cartel, the Tijuana Cartel, and others. Gallardo's arrest marked the end of a centralized empire, but it also set the stage for a new era of organized crime in Mexico. His careful planning ensured that his legacy and the criminal networks he helped build would continue to shape the drug trade for decades. It was a lesson in ambition, strategy, and the far-reaching consequences of a life built on crime. Chapter 7. The Lessons from Gallardo's Empire. The story of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo shows just how closely power, corruption, and intelligence networks can be connected. His rise to control the Guadalajara Cartel proves that strategic thinking, strong alliances, and inside knowledge of law enforcement can create enormous influence. Gallardo used political connections, bribery, and careful planning to build one of the most powerful criminal empires in Mexico's history. But his story also shows the limits of that power. U.S. intelligence operations, DEA investigations, and coordinated law enforcement efforts eventually caught up with him. Even the most connected kingpin cannot escape the consequences of his actions forever. Gallardo's legacy is a powerful reminder. Behind every empire lie weaknesses, and one mistake or the work of a determined agent can bring it all down. His story teaches us about ambition, strategy, and the unavoidable risks of a life built on crime. The Guadalajara Cartel was once nearly unstoppable, but even the most powerful criminal organizations have limits. Law enforcement pressure, internal conflicts, and intelligence operations slowly chipped away at Felix Gallardo's empire. His story is more than crime. It's a lesson in ambition, power, and the consequences of choices. How long can someone think they can control both criminals and politicians? How long can a kingpin hide from the law before justice finally catches up? Gallardo's rise and fall show that no empire, no matter how strong, is immune to the consequences of its actions. If you want to explore more stories about real-life crime, intelligence operations, and the hidden world behind the headlines, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Narco Files. Every story we share uncovers a part of the world most people never get to see.